from Del Rio, Texas, Rob Wade and Robert Garza. Two guys who dive. This episode of Two Guys Who Dive, recorded live Saturday, 18 January 2014. Episode 93, Is Diving Right For You? And welcome to another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive, and I'm your host, Rob Wade, and once again, I'm missing my cohort in crime, Scuba Bob, and allow me to make a slight adjustment to the camera. Been making some adjustments to connections in the studio here, and so the lighting is a little bit off. Let me bring that. There we go. As if by magic. That's a little bit too much. Harsh. Oh, the technical stuff that we go through to make a good show for you guys. All right, there we go. That's a little bit better. Yeah, Scuba Bob let me know earlier today that he had a friend of the family who lost one of his friends, lost a relative, and so he's spending some time with him this evening. So we wish all of them the best. Prayers go out to them, and it's always tough when you lose somebody, especially if you're really close to them. There's a lot of, the whole mourning process is different for most people, even though psychologists have kind of figured out there's a mapping of the stages of grief, but everybody deals with that. Each of those stages is a little bit different for each person. So some people just like to be alone. They like to be separated from others, and some people need others around them. The bottom line is, as a friend, as a relative, you need to reach out to them and make sure they're okay. Because, again, different people handle the grief process differently. So you should be available to your friends to help them out. Let's check the chat room, see if anybody else is out here. Been talking with some of our friends, our viewers, about difficulties with the chat room. And if you've logged into Ustream TV, you'll see that when you jump into the chat, there's actually two avenues to share information or interface with whatever you're watching. There's the social stream and the chat. To be honest with you, I don't know what the differences are. I haven't really looked into what the social stream is compared to the chat. I assume that the chat is the primary way of communicating with folks. But a couple of people have said that they get in to the chat and they pull up the screen, which, by the way, you can actually pop out the chat window from the main window. It can become its own separate window. So you can do other things rather than just sit there on the website, or you could have multiple windows, tabs, whatever you want to do. So I was looking into it, and I just created a temporary, or what's the word I'm looking for? A practice user and an example user over on our server, where that's what we watch. We watch the live stream as you guys see it via our server here. So I can actually see, and there's, of course, there's a huge delay, but at least it gives us an indication that what we think is going out from here is actually going out to you guys. So if it drops out there, then we know that there's something going on, something up with the service. Ustream.tv. I shouldn't be having any kind of bandwidth issues now that if you followed last week, we talked about the great Time Warner Cable debacle that we went through to switch from business class service to residential service. And so now I have 5 gigabit up, or up upstream, so that I should be able to send big data your way. And in fact, I did do some tweaking of the settings here on the software that we're using, XSplit, to see if we could improve some things. So as a matter of fact, I'm just about ready to see if I can flip the switch to bump all the cameras from right now doing 720p, which is the bottom end of HD, to full 1080p. So I got to make sure that I'm not going to kill the computer doing that. Should be able to handle it because I think I'm running like 20% processing power. Again, that's geeky into the weeds for folks, but for those who are kind of interested in getting into podcasting, that's a little bit of how the sausage is made. So you got to be concerned with if your computer can compress, can code, can encode the video and the audio that you want to do. So I did bump up the audio stream, so it should actually, even though I think it sounds great, I love watching it on after it's been uploaded. I love to watch it to more to hear the quality of the sound. I think the sound is really good quality. Of course, it helps when you have really great mics. These Heil PR40 mics are just awesome. But and then I'm using the Behringer Xenix X1222 USB soundboard, which is awesome. But it really comes down to, you can have all that high quality, but if your computer can't pull it all together nicely and send it out, then garbage in, garbage out. So you probably will notice some improvement in the audio at this point. And then hopefully we'll improve the video a little bit more, even though I think the video looks great, considering these are basically just kind of higher end webcams that we're doing this with. I was talking or exchanging emails with Andrew Zarian from two guys from Queens. One of the shows that he produces is What the Tech. And I love his setup. I love the quality of the stuff he's doing. Of course, he's got even higher end cameras he's doing. He's actually using, he used to use these kinds of webcams to do his show, and he still uses these for the guests. But now what he's doing is he's got a regular high consumer grade video camera that can do high speed USB communication. A lot of your consumer grade video cameras have a USB port in them, so you can download your video through that if you're not dumping it to the card and then copying that to your computer. But they're typically not, the USB ports are typically not, typically not geared up for pumping the data at high stream for a constant rate, which you would need. In other words, it would need to be able to act like a webcam in order to really function that way. And the camera that he's using for his primary does that, and it's pretty cool. But it's a little pricey for me right now. I think this does great quality. I'm really happy with it. It really comes down to tweaking the rest of the system, the rest of configuration, to maximize what I can do with it. And so now I have the bandwidth, I have the stream, I can bump things up. You notice that I have a little dog right here. Last week, if you were watching or if you caught it on YouTube, we were saying goodbye to the little dachshund that we were fostering. This week it was she was getting spayed before getting the microchip in her and then being adopted by her new family. So it was very, very bittersweet. We had a tough time Monday bringing her in and saying goodbye to her, but that was the agreement. That's the tough thing when you agree to foster foster dogs, is you can get attached to them. But at the same time, we were adopting this one because we had actually agreed to adopt this one before we were fostering Alex. So we picked this one up, and she is not... Here we go. I'll let you say hi to everybody. This is Vala. Yes, hi. She is not a full-bred, full-blood dachshund. I'm pretty sure she has some Chihuahua in her, because her legs are a little bit long, and oh my gosh, she's a spaz. We named her, the people who were fostering her called her Lottie, but we tend to give our dogs names that are found in various science fiction series. So we have our wire-haired dachshund, who really looks like a long-haired dachshund now because she so badly needs a haircut. She's named Chiana, Chiana, named after a character in Farscape, one of our favorite, no longer in production sci-fi series. And then next we have Ronan, Ronon, who is from Stargate Atlantis, that character name. And then we have Grayza, Grayza, our red one that pops up here every so often. That name is also from Farscape. And then list this one, Vala is from Stargate SG-1. Interestingly, one of the character was played by Claudia Black. Oh, you need to get down now. Vala was played by Claudia Black, who was also in Farscape as Officer Aaron Sun, and which is a cool name as well. But we needed a name that kind of helped fit this little one's character. She's still a pup. She's only like 9 months old. And the challenge there is she came in, whereas when we brought the foster in, we have a big kennel, a collapsible cage that we use to isolate a dog, especially a new one brought in, so that everybody can see each other, everybody can sniff each other, you get used to their sights, their sounds, but without being able to tear their head off. Because anytime you introduce a new animal to the pack, there's all sorts of potential problems there. So we did that, and it only took a couple of hours before everybody was like, oh, okay, there's a new dog. And we let the foster run around with everybody else, and it was fine. Not so with Vala. Vala is feisty from word go, and 1 second she'll be like all playful, the next she's like ready to launch. So she's kind of got an inconsistent behavior pattern, and there could be a number of reasons for that. A, she's a puppy. B, she's got Chihuahua in her, and they're feisty anyway. C, how she was treated before she was found, rescued, and ultimately adopted. So it took pretty much the better part of a day, to get her acclimatized to it. Matter of fact, it wasn't until the next day, because we brought her home that evening, I ended up sleeping on the floor next to the cage so that all the others could hang around. And that was the most restless night of attempting to sleep that I've had in a long time. I was exhausted the next day. But then we brought the cage back to the studio here, which is where we keep all the dogs during the day, because we can close it off. They have a doggy door that can get in and out free of will. And plus, the neat thing is I've got software that I can remote in and activate the cameras and watch what's going on. So I kind of watched how they interacted. I want to see if there was any attempts to attack through the cage, and ultimately they were fine. So I came home lunchtime and took them out one at a time to get used to being a run around. Of course, there was everybody got prancy and a little uppity, but then they chilled out because there was other things to look at and the big old yard that we have. So they were fine. So now, other than a couple of shouting matches that Vala has gotten into with some of the other dogs, so far so good. Just got to get her. She's still not quite used to everything here, but she sleeps with us just like all the other ones do, and that's all good. So we're glad to have the little one in here, and glad that we were able to rescue. I tell you, yesterday was a tough day for me because coming home, it seemed like everywhere I turned, there were stray dogs out there. And one that I was trying to at least catch long enough to help was running around with a leash still attached. And I tell you, there's just no amount of punishment, I think, that is worth those people out there who mistreat, abuse, neglect their dogs. I'd love to be on the squad that lines up shot to take you people out, because it's evil to do these things to these dogs. I get militant about that. So you don't want to cross paths with me if you're one of those people. I sent out a post, a Facebook post, a tweet yesterday, basically said, how about this? How about I treat you like you treat your dog? And so think about that. If you do not treat your dog or your cat well, then that's the kind of treatment you deserve, and I am more than happy to give you. And because there's just no excuse. There is simply no excuse to leave dogs out in sub-zero weather or extremely cold weather all night, or leave them out in super heat all day, not providing them the proper shelter, not keeping a proper collar and tag on them. So if somehow an accident happens and they do get loose, that those of us who actually will help can find who the owner is, because we can look in the tag. Wait, okay, come here. Oh, that jump was a fail. Because with those tags, we can contact the vet. They have the tag number and who that belongs to. So we can track you down and we can return your pet to you. But we can't do that if you don't have a collar and a tag on them. So get off your lazy rear ends and take care of business. You have a responsibility because you assumed that when you decided that you wanted to own a pet. You need to treat them with a lot more respect. So that's my public service announcement there, and a threat. So I was checking around latest news on the interwebs and ran across an interesting survey by Pioneer Research. Now, these are the folks that make the Sea Life cameras, which we like. We have the Sea Life DC 1400 Pro Duo. Love that camera. And they did some research of active divers, because there's a lot of people who have sea cards but they're not divers. It's like we say, a sea card means you can dive, but diving means you're a diver. So if you don't actually go out and dive, then I caution you about telling people, hey, I'm a diver. Because the first thing I'm going to ask you, really, when was the last time you dove? And if you tell me 4 years ago, I'm just going to laugh at you. So anyway, they did some research of active divers, and according to the results, 35% are planning to travel more often on dive vacations. The economy has not been the greatest, and so it's challenged a lot of people to be able to do those trips. So I think it's pretty awesome that we're starting to see at least some uptick in the diving community to go out and do things. But what I wonder is that percentages and statistics kind of tell you, can say certain things, can be misleading. If you survey a bunch of active divers and 35% say they're going to go on more trips, that may be the same as very active divers that already they dive on a regular basis and they're going to just do more. Or it could mean that that there's a growing percentage of the active divers that are going to become more active. What I would like to see is that number increase amongst all certified divers. I find it surprising that somebody would go through all the effort to get certified, and even potentially, I've known them to go so far as to get all their equipment and then not do anything. That just kills me. I don't understand that. So anyway, 35% say they're going to go on more dive vacations, and on the other end of that spectrum, 4% said they're going to go on fewer. Now I have to guess that probably that's due to the economy, because especially now that Obamacare is starting to really rack people hard. I have no doubt that that's going to negatively impact the disposable cash that folks would be applying to vacations. That just gets me so angry talking about Obamacare, because it's garbage, it's junk, it's unconstitutional, and it's just going to continue destroying our economy. And it's going to get worse, folks. I'm telling you right now. Anyway, the survey also revealed that 24% said they're taking more videos, and 25% are using more external lighting sources. Now, we got the DC 1400 Pro Duo because it's the whole package deal. It has the case, has the diffuser, has the video light that's LED, and it also has the strobe, which is awesome. So it's already got the lighting attachments, but you can always add more, because they've got those trays that mount on the bottom, and that's pretty cool. But what that tells me is the same thing that my wife and I kind of discovered over the last 2 or 3 years, is that kind of once you get a taste for being able to take some decent photographs and, surprising to me, video, you kind of get the bug for the most part, and you want to do it more, and you want to do better at it. You want to learn more about the lighting, all the settings that you have to consider. And of course, when you're diving, you have a completely different set of situations that you also need to be aware of, because of the way light is changed as you go deeper. When you're taking video or photographs with a regular land camera, you have the type of light, whether it's fluorescent, sunlight, incandescent. You have those kinds of things so you're considering things like white balance and exposure, ISO, etc. But then when you're diving, you have to add to that the awareness that the deeper you go, you lose a part of the spectrum. And so it starts shifting towards the blue, because to throw a little bit of science out there for you, the spectrum is made up of, what the rainbow looks like. And so all that combined gives you white light. When it's split out, you see the various spectrum. And it's spread out because different frequencies of light travel at different speeds. And so that's where you get such things, if you've heard of a Doppler shift. As you've heard it with sound, where as it's coming closer to you, it compresses, so it's a higher pitch. And then as something like a siren, as it goes by you, then there's a longer time, there's a longer distance for the frequency of sound, and so it drops in pitch because there's bigger gaps in the waveform. Light operates similarly. So you have different frequencies of light starting at the red end of the spectrum, or actually infrared, all the way through to the blue side, or the ultraviolet. And so the ultraviolet side is the very high frequency light, and the infrared is the very low frequency light. So water has the ability to start to break that down. So your slower frequencies, your lower light frequencies in the red end of the spectrum start to drop out, which is why you start shifting towards the blues and greens as you go deeper. So when you're taking pictures or video, your lens doesn't know how to compensate for that. So you have to help it out, and that's why they have such things as red filters. And you can even get different degrees of red filter, because if you go, say, 30 feet down, depending on the conditions, you may only lose some of the red spectrum. So you don't want like a heavy red filter, because then it shifts it the other direction. So you may want a lighter red filter. But as you go deeper, you want a harsher, a stronger red filter, so that it shifts more of the red color back in. The beauty about the Sea Life DC 1400 is that it does that digitally. You can tell it when it's very easy to set up. You tell it, I'm diving in freshwater or saltwater. So it knows that in freshwater, you're typically going to be seeing more greens, whereas saltwater, you're going to typically see more blues. So it knows that, and you tell it the depth in a range. Is it going to be shallower than 25 feet or deeper than 25 feet? So it knows how harsh or how dramatic to make the red filter digitally to your pictures. And it's awesome. It does such a great job, as you've probably seen from a number of the videos that we've shown with that camera. Now, those are the kinds of things that you consider. And so people, they start out with the really, really low-end cameras, and they get used to that, and they realize, like we did, I'd like to do more. I'd like to take better shots. I'd like to take high-resolution shots. I'd like to learn how to do more. And I'm still a long ways away from being like our friend Trish, who does some really great underwater photography. But I'm working my way toward it, because now it's an interest to me. Not just for personal enjoyment, but Tara, my wife and our producer, she does scrapbooking. And so being able to take some of those prime pictures and scrapbooking them is really important for her. And it looks great. She does a great job with it. And also, you get some really good pictures, and especially with high resolution, high def, they're suitable for framing. So we've got a number of pictures in our living room of ourselves diving, and there's a number of these that really come out nicely if you plan them out right. So and for me, it's kind of hit or miss. I'm still learning the ropes of how to do this underwater as well as above the water, and that's why I'm a big fan of the Lumia series of smartphones, especially the 1020, because the camera it's unbeatable by any platform. So if you're into photography, if you're into photography and you don't want to have to carry a digital SLR around with you all the time, this is easily the best smartphone to have. If you can adapt to the Windows Phone smartphone operating system, which is easy to do, it's wonderful. The camera can't be beat, and it's fantastic, both for photography and for video. Plus, they keep updating it. They keep adding more features to it. There's so many cool things you can do with this camera. It's just remarkable. So, but anyway, you can do all the kinds of, you can do like basic simple mode with it, or you can switch it to the pro mode, and you can adjust the same things you can on a SLR, the exposure, the f-stop, the ISO, the exposure, the white balance, manual focus. It's amazing. The zoom, everything. It's just fantastic. And so I'm really getting into this in all the perspectives, both underwater and above. So anyway, so it was interesting to see that the survey showed more people are getting into the photography and videography, because it's so easy to do now with the Sea Life cameras particularly. especially some of the new innovations and accessories they have for the DC 1400 category of cameras. So it's definitely worthwhile to get into diving and start looking at doing those kinds of things, because there's nothing like being able to look back at video and pictures afterward, after you've been in this great place, and say, oh, wow, that was, it brings the memories back to you just that more vividly. And it's an opportunity to share it with people who may never, ever experience that. They may never become a diver and never get to go with you on those great trips. So you can at least share with them a little bit of that experience. It's kind of cool to be able to, be sitting watching Discovery Channel, Learning Channel, or Science Channel, or one of those, and you see all their great video, which of course they've got huge, wonderful cameras that do all this stuff. To look at those, you say, "Oh wow, it's been there." I remember being there, or that's an awesome place to go, and realize you've got footage, you've got video and pictures that are at least approaching that quality, because it's becoming more and more affordable to do so, and to share that with your friends. So I thought that was interesting interview. Let's see. Okay, this is interesting too. And I was on Friday at work. I was talking with one of the lieutenants that I work on Air Force Base. I was talking with one of the lieutenants, and of course, we were the topic somehow migrated to scuba diving, and he mentioned that a friend of his was telling him about somebody who was developing basically a gill system for humans to breathe underwater. And I asked him to shoot me the link, but he didn't. He either forgot to do it or didn't have time to do it. But I did find I did some research, and actually there have been a number of approaches on how to create some sort of a oxygen extraction system that basically functions like gills, so that you don't have to carry a scuba tank on your back. And so I found, as a recent news report, which had to be the one he was referring to, a Korean company that has posited a concept, and they've even done mock-ups. And I'm thinking, okay, I got to see this. So let's switch to the screen region. So here's the site, and the concept is called Triton, Portable Oxygen Respirator. Okay, so I looked at the information behind this, and actually I found a number of websites, scuba related, who were saying, oh wow, this is cool, you need to check this out. And of course they give background, and this is a cool picture of the mock-up. I mean, it's a really awesome looking device. Here's some of the sketches going behind the design. I think are pretty cool. Very futuristic looking. Of course, this is purely a mock-up. So they're talking about here how the concept is, how currently you have to use regulators that you have to connect them and all this. And what if you could come up with something that's doesn't require you to carry a bunch of heavy equipment, is easy to use because you simply just stick it in your mouth and breathe. And so they've come up with this concept for a portable oxygen respirator for breathing underwater, as if being on the ground by simply biting it. Okay. This is pretty cool. Basically, the front end of the device pulls in the water through a filtered system here. And then there's a computer microprocessor, battery powered, of course, that's able to process, doesn't go into a lot of details, but basically it's able to, this is pretty cool. It pulls the water in, and then there are, the filters are here's the artificial gill model. Basically, the holes that the water comes through are smaller than water molecules. So the theory is that the water comes through these membranes or filaments, if you will, and then it's able to, by sheer force, I would have to assume, because it's trying to pull it through the holes, by sheer force, it separates the oxygen from the hydrogen. Now, I would have to assume that the display here showing bubbles coming through, that would be the hydrogen being separated. Because if you separate hydrogen from oxygen, it's no longer water, it's two separate gases. It's two molecules of, or two atoms of hydrogen and an atom of oxygen. Hence why it's called H2O. So out of any molecule of water, there's 2/3 of it is hydrogen. Only 1/3 of it is oxygen. So in theory, these little filaments separate out, basically split the atom. It basically shreds the atom and pulls the oxygen atoms away from the hydrogen atoms. Now, normally what we do in order to pull that off is called electrolysis. Okay, using electricity to separate oxygen from hydrogen. So here again, back to the design. Here's the cutaway. So you have your micro compressor. So it would have to compress out the oxygen, because here's the thing: when you're breathing at depth, those of you who are scuba divers know, the pressure makes it virtually impossible for your lungs to expand on their own, which is why you can't have a big tube running to the surface at 33 feet down and then try to suck the air down to it. You can't expand your lungs against that pressure without some help, which is why your tank is pressurized, and then your regulator, the first stage, takes that high pressure that's in the tank and steps the pressure down to near the ambient pressure of whatever your depth is. If you're 33 feet, you're down at 2 bar. So it's stepping the pressure down to that. So then it's nearly equal to the pressure that you're working against. And so when you start to suck in the air, it helps you because it's feeding it to you at the ambient pressure. So that's why your lungs are able to fill up. So then it's got this oxygen valve and then the breathe out valve. So I'm assuming that the compressor then is able to separate. But of course, you don't see the actual flow going out to the two mechanisms that stick out the side. And here's a couple of different versions. I guess it'll come in charcoal or sea blue or whatever that is. And it's a rechargeable battery. So I'm assuming that this is the wall charger or table charger, whatever. I mean, that is cool. It is a very cool design. Those would be the kind of thing that I probably wouldn't, if it actually worked, I'd probably want to use as a backup system. You know, because it does run on battery. I'd want something I know, the mechanical aspects of a regular closed circuit or open circuit breathing system is pretty foolproof. And if it's going to fail, it's going to fail in the open position, so you're just going to be sipping free-flowing air to get to the surface. So I wouldn't necessarily be ready to trust the battery. And again, this is pretty cool looking. There's the intake. Another angle. Still another angle. Now, it doesn't look like you could use standard mouthpieces with this. So you couldn't just go get your own. You'd have to buy some sort of a custom. Of course, for me, that would have to be I would have to get a Secure. If they made something like this that works, Secure would have to make a mouthpiece that works with this. Okay, so here's the thing. This would be really, really cool if it works, but it's really an impossible product. It's an impossible concept. Here's some things to think about when looking at this. It takes a lot to fill up your lungs at any given depth. Now, realizing that the deeper you go, your capacity is compressed. And so, without getting too deep into the dive theory, if you go down to 33 feet, it takes twice as much air to expand your lungs to the full size because the compression, it cuts the volume by half. So this would have to adjust its ability to feed you air based on your depth. Okay? So that in itself is a technical challenge because it would have to, the deeper you go, it means that it would have to feed you air that much faster to compensate for the amount that your lungs would have to expand in order to get a full breath. Now, think about this. Just not even considering freshwater, because most people prefer to dive in seawater. So let's consider the saltwater aspect. Salinity varies, believe it or not. It's not consistent. So there's salinity variation to consider, and then there's also just the general variation of dissolved gases in water, period, at different depths, etc. So this device would have to be able to pump, considering all of those changes, this device would have to be able to pump over 500 gallons of water through just to extract enough O2 for you to breathe. But wait, there's even a more difficult piece to this. We can't breathe straight O2 underwater. If you were watching last week, we talked about oxygen toxicity. The air that we breathe right now is actually only 21% oxygen, 79% nitrogen, and the rest are trace gases. Which, because that's our natural breathing mixture, when we go deep, we have to account for the amount of nitrogen that is building up in our tissues. Because when we breathe, all of that is coming into our lungs. All of that is going into our system. And because of compression, it's actually getting saturated into our various tissues because we're spongy. All right. So if we can't breathe straight O2, and what this thing does is what? It takes water molecules. Even if you take the salinity, if you take particulates out of the picture, and if you were just able to breathe pure water, this is taking H2O, which only has hydrogen and oxygen in it, okay? It's bringing an H2O and splitting out, in theory, the oxygen from the hydrogen. So even if it could feed you breathable air at the rate you'd need to be able to breathe it at various depths, the problem is it's feeding you 100% O2 because once it's splitting out, it's splitting the hydrogen. So there is no nitrogen. There are no trace gases. It's just hydrogen and oxygen. So it simply is not a workable thing unless you have something else that's introducing as a mixture with the O2 it's extracting. You would still need something that's feeding you hydrogen or helium or some other trace gases to mix in there because it's all about the partial pressures. So this would have to feed you only 21% oxygen, or as you go deeper, actually less than that because the compression actually makes it in your system seem like it's more. So ultimately, this device couldn't really work. It's a great idea. It looks great in science fiction, but the fact is we're not fish. Little fish can actually sleep because their metabolism is so slow that they don't have to have constant movement because of temperature, because of the way the gills work. But you'll notice that your bigger fish, like sharks, they are moving all the time because that's the only way they generate heat, and it's the only way that they keep enough water movement across their gills that they can extract the oxygen that they need. Switch to mammals who are land, we breathe regular air. We're not nearly as efficient. Even looking at dolphins and whales, they still come up to the air for surface. They don't, they have up to the surface for air. They have to take a big old breath and they hold it all the way down. And so their bodies have developed or have been designed with a number of mechanisms that help compensate for what would normally happen to us if we tried to do the kind of breath hold diving that they do. So while it sounds good, if you see this on the internet, if you hear people talking about it, just remember we can't breathe straight O2 underwater, and that's the only thing that this thing theoretically does is it splits out hydrogen from oxygen to feed that to you. So you can't breathe that. You can't breathe O2, straight O2 underwater, deeper than, just a very, very short distance, So you'd need the other gases. So this would be, at best, get me to the last 33 feet. All right. So great idea. Looks cool. It ain't going to happen. So the title of the episode is Diving Right for You. These kinds of things are all things to consider. There are the challenges of understanding, at least on a modest level, what's happening to your body when you're scuba diving. There's the consideration of things that you can do while you're diving. Again, the photography, the videography, those kinds of things are worthwhile to consider. The things you have to consider ultimately are, can you handle the skill sets that you have to learn in order to go scuba diving? Okay. You have to be able to do such things as, of course, breathe underwater, which can be a shock for a lot of people the first time out. But I have yet to find somebody who simply can't do that part of it. In fact, in a pool, they acclimatize to that pretty quickly because it's kind of cool. There's the cool factor overwhelms the fear factor. Sometimes people may take a few breaths and then they're like, okay, this feels weird, and they pop back up to the surface, which is safe to do in a pool. But pretty quickly they get used to that and they're able to swim around the pool. But there are all these other aspects of getting certified to scuba dive that you have to learn. Such things as clearing your mask underwater. If you are 60 feet down and something happens, water gets in your mask or in your nose or whatever, you can't just shoot to the surface. You have to keep your wits about you and be able to clear that water out, which means learning the skill of breathing in through your mouth, because you got the regulator in your mouth, breathing in through your mouth and then exhaling forcefully through your nose to push the water out, because air pushed into the container, which is the mask attached to your face, can push the water out. And it's a very simple process, but for some people, it's mentally a challenge. You'll have to do that. You'll have to take your mask off and put it back on, thus requiring you to completely clear the mask of any water. Neutral buoyancy is important. And that's getting an idea. It's like just like what you watch the fish do, because they have a swim bladder that helps them, basically acts like a BC for them. You have to understand that the combination of the wetsuit you're wearing, the gear you're wearing, the lead weight you have on you, and how much you're expanding yourself by breathing changes your buoyancy. And buoyancy isn't about air. It's about not solid space and displacement. So you have to kind of understand a little bit. You learn this in the course, but you have to understand a little bit about displacement and what happens when you breathe in air and expand. You're now displacing more water because you're taking up more space. That space is taken up by the air you breathe, which is virtually weightless. So you're increasing your displacement without increasing your weight. So the amount of water you're displacing weighs more potentially than what you weigh taking up that space. So when you breathe, if you get neutrally buoyant, the idea is when you breathe in, you're expanding, you're displacing more water. So you become more buoyant. And then you exhale and you reduce your displacement. So you weigh a little bit more per your volume, and so you start to sink. So you start getting a feel for that rhythm because there's a delay. You take a breath and there's a delay before you come up. You exhale, there's a delay before you go down. And it's a little bit different for each person. But you get a sense for that so that your breathing rhythm works so that you're breathing just in time so that you don't actually start to come up, you don't start to go down. You're able to maintain a steady depth in the water column. Such things as hand signals, which you'd think would be intuitive, and some of them are, but we have certain things that we do on the surface that we can't do underwater as far as signals. For instance, usually what the most common sign for people to use when they're saying they're okay is they're like, I'm okay. You don't do that underwater unless you're saying, I want to go up or I want to go down. So learning to break yourself of old habits of hand signals and saying, this is okay. This is both a question and an answer. It's kind of like aloha. It's hello and goodbye. So you're learning various hand signals, how to tell, explain to each other how much air is in your tank. If you're low on air, if you're out of air, and you need their alternate air. There's all these different signals that you need to learn because underwater, nobody can hear you scream. Well, actually they can, but you can't really converse unless you're using a underwater comm system. So your underwater comm system is hand signals. So keeping your wits about you, being able to communicate in that fashion is important. Watermanship. You do need to be able to swim. Well, diving is actually tremendously easier than actual swimming. There may be cases where you have to ditch your gear, you're on the surface, you're having to swim back to shore or to a boat or to a dock. So you need to be able to swim. And so for the PADI certification, that's a 200 yard, 200 meter, or 300 meter if you're doing the mask and fins distance swim. It's not timed, so you can do whatever combination of swimming styles you prefer. You could dog paddle the whole way. It doesn't matter, but you have to be able to make it. And then there's also a 10-minute float, tread water, basically any style, any way you want to do that. But basically, it's staying in place. So if you're waiting for a boat to come around to pick you up, you have to be able to float there for 10 minutes. And all of these are self-rescue kinds of things. So there's 20 skill sets that you need to learn as part of getting certified. And and they're not difficult individually, but each thing builds upon the other. And so as you go through the course, you've got your academics. So you take your academic portion, which can be online or it can be in resident. Basically, I go the course of giving you the DVD and the student workbook. And so that way you can do the self-study. So it's kind of like doing the online version without having to pay extra for the online version. And then we come together and we go do some prescriptive teaching over the stuff that you've just learned to make sure that you understand it. If there's any questions you have, I can help you through that, reinforce some things. I focus a lot on the the dive tables and the computer. And then you take your quizzes and your tests and you're done with the academic portion. Now it's spending all the time in the pool to learn the basic set skills and then taking that to the open water so that you can demonstrate that and actually use it in the environment that you're going to be using it in, which is the open water. And so that involves 5 confined water dives in the pool and 4 open water dives. And a little bit of that is changing this year. We're moving something, adding some things to it, moving some things to the first dive, whereas we didn't really have any task loading the first dive, but now there will be. But so it's an investment in your time, but once you get it down, you can talk to most divers. Once you get it down, if you keep those skills up, it's easy to do. Just every time you go out, take a moment to do, especially the ones that are have been the most challenge for you, which for most people is going to be like the mask clearing. But get those down and get more comfortable with them so that you can enjoy your diving. Ultimately, the reason why we do this is to go out there and see the fish, see the coral life, and just relax and have fun. Plus all the stuff that you do with people, other divers during the surface intervals or in the evenings afterward. When we make the group trips to Balmoral, we have a blast. There's tons of diving and eating and joking around and just having fun. That's all part of the experience. And then getting to go places that you never would have thought to go that you would go before. It really changes the aspect of your vacation dramatically. Because whereas you might go to places X, Y, and Z, and let's go see the local store, or let's go see the local sightseeing, whatever. Now you add the specter of being able to dive there. And it's so many things that you can see different in different places. And it's a different environment every time. Whereas you go to on land vacation spots, they're pretty much all the same. Meaning you go once, you go again, you're going to pretty much see the same thing unless they did a renovation. But you go on a dive, it's a different dive every time. There's a saying, the same diver never makes the same dive twice. Even though you go to the same location, it's a different dive. Because it's life. There's life there. But that's another aspect to consider, because some people interacting even passively with sea life just terrifies them. So if that is something that you're not prepared for, then maybe diving isn't for you. If adapting yourself to these skills is something that you would not be comfortable doing, then probably scuba diving isn't for you. But you shouldn't consider it not for you because you think it's hard, because it's not. The whole course curriculum, whether it's PADI or NAUI or SDI or any of the other dive agencies, they're geared to give you the skills to take care of yourself, be a responsible and safe diver, as well as a good steward of the environment you're diving in. But it's designed so that you can succeed at doing it. It's not a I dare you to dive kind of situation. It's a, come on, everybody can do this. Because I've taught people from over 60 to 10 years old. And they all dig it. They all had a great time. And so there really no, and I've been diving with older people than that, tremendously older people. And they look like they're about to to collapse on land, but you get them in the water and it's a magical thing. They're transformed into somebody who could do ballet. I mean, it's an environment that's easy for them. So those are some considerations. And if you contact me, if you contact us, we'll be happy to share more and discuss some specific details, which is why we like to have people come out to the dive club meetings, so that if you have some more one-on-one questions, we can certainly entertain those. You can interact with us on the chat room with the show here too, and we'll share those things with you, because we like to encourage people to get into diving or spin back up their diving if they're already certified. So those are some things to consider now as far as whether or not scuba diving might or might not be for you. And we're already 10 minutes after, and it's me all by myself. Can you believe this? It's all me all by myself, but I have a great time doing this. Kind of a little personal plug here. I've kind of started working on a Windows Phone app for the Ceti Fox Productions, which is pretty cool. Microsoft makes it very easy to get started into developing our own apps. They're trying to expand, obviously, the platform. And so I signed up as a developer, and really for this that I'm going to show you real quick is really anybody can do it. I mean, it doesn't require you to actually become a developer. And to be honest, what this does is you're basically building off of templates. But it's not difficult. You literally just walk through the process, and I'll show. Oh, let me re-log in. Sign in. There we go. Oops. So you start building, and there we go. So here's some versions I've been playing with. But if you were going to create, it's pretty cool. You click on create, and then you have these templates that you can play with. So you can do something that's based on your city. You can keep track of your diet. You can do something about if you've got a business, basically you can create an app that promotes your business, shows off the product lines that you sell, etc. Here's for, I guess, heroes, if you're a fan of characters. So if you've got like a TV show, I would figure that this kind of template would be very popular amongst those who are of the type that are the Twilight crowd, Team whatever, Team Edward, whatever. So this would be that kind of a thing. Cataloging of products in your store. Set up a birthday app. This would be a really quick and easy one if you wanted to set up a birthday template for your kids or something. Various collections, if you want to show off your collection. This would be kind of like a scrapbooking thing, I guess. Do weddings, invitations, that kind of thing. Again, an app that works like that. Share your videos. Or your favorite videos. So it could be stuff that you actually like to watch, kind of like when you're on YouTube and you share that, hey, I like this video, you should all see this one or subscribe. That'd be one way to do it. If you're doing a restaurant, this would be a great app for your local restaurants here, especially your mom and pop type deals. Kind of a neat way to kind of get modernized with your setup and say, hey, guess what? If you want to check out what we have to offer at our, Grandma Smith's restaurant, you can check out our app, download our app. You can follow movies. You can set up kind of conversational, sort of a pseudo-social sharing of your movies. Stuff about your family is a good thing. This would be a good app for, especially for like family reunions, that kind of thing. This also would probably be very good for scrapbooker, somebody who's a scrapbooker. And again, kind of like your heroes and sports fans, stuff like that. If there's bands that you follow, you can set up an app based around them, like a fan site. Hobbies. You could do an app that basically showcases your trips. For scuba divers, that would be very, very handy. And you can advertise your storefront. You can basically share what you have, and people can order stuff. And if you're doing personal training, so you might want to do an app that has personal trainer and your health, your food, your diets, that kind of stuff. And of course, for sports, I hate sports, all sports. I hate sports. I get tired of the people around me talking about, oh, the Cowboys this, or oh, the Super Bowl. I could care less. But if you're into sports, this would be a good good template to use for something like that. And then, of course, books, stories, that kind of stuff, kind of like a flipboard kind of thing that you could do. So you've got all these templates, and I'm hoping that they're going to expand more templates and make them deeper. And oh, by the way, if you are more than just a cursory developer, or this is your first time doing something, you actually can, once you're done, you can download the source code and bring it into the full-blown developing tools that are being used for, Visual Studio, those kinds of things. You can bring those into the free developer software so that you can expand on these. Basically, this would be what you could use to start the app in the most basic format, and then bring it into more complex levels and capability by bringing the source code. So this latest version, they had some new templates. So basically, it's really easy to do, and even shows you as you go. It shows you what it looks like, which is pretty darn cool. So I'll show you just kind of like the edit. So it has some stock data sources, which in other words, where it gets the feed, the data, the information that's going to be displayed in the app. And you can customize them, which I did. I basically killed all the ones they had except the about one. I created new ones. But you can look at what they have and see that's what that means. So I learned a lot about the basic design of a Windows phone app just by looking at this, which was pretty cool. So, and these are each collapsible. So as you go into the details, so you can edit, you can preview the section, or you can remove the section altogether. And it's easy to rearrange them too, because how they list here is how, if you understand about Windows Phone apps, they pivot left and right to see the next page, if you will. You can scroll up and down to see additional things in that page, but it scrolls left and right to see different pages altogether. And so you click here on this little rearrange sections, and it brings up an area. I'll just do it. And so you can literally just click and drag it to rearrange the order. So if you want them to come in a certain order, which is pretty cool. And then I'm just going to cancel because I like the order. Yes, leave this page. All right. So each of these has the same three pieces, elements, if you will. So you have your data source, which is customizable. You have the actual section pages, and then you have the detail within each section. So, for instance, let's look at a simple one, who we are. So this is showing basically, and this is the preview. So this is showing who we are, myself, which you can see here, and Tara. And you can see how we've configured it. It says, okay, who we are and what I do, who I am and who she is. So here's how that looks. It's really easy. Go into the data source. So you can say if these are static resources or if they're App Studio data services. And so in other words, are these things that you're going to change on the fly, which doesn't require you to actually redo the app? If they're static resources, then in order to change the content, you'd have to actually regen the app. So you obviously, in most cases, you want something you can update that updates all by itself. For instance, YouTube videos or blog posts, for example. So you just end up, from here, you create an item. So each of these are an item, and they have different field elements, if you will. There's a title, a subtitle, an image that goes with it, and then a description. So that's all there is to it. There's 4 basic pieces to it. You can edit and delete it. So title was me, okay, and subtitle was a little bit about what my capacity is, if you will. And then I had a more descriptive dissertation on my background. Same thing for Tara. So once you're done, then you save that. And so now, okay, so that's what content is there. Now we get into how it's going to look on the screen. Okay, so we go to the section pages. So now this is going to be showing how this is going to display. So you have, again, some templates for the layout. Okay, so you want, and it shows you these little blocks are pictures, and then you have content, or you can have it this way, and it shows you what it's going to look like. It can get really detailed. And again, immediately you see the end result, and this is pretty cool. This will be pretty boring since it's just the 2 of us. And same with here, just bigger thumbnails. So, and you'll notice as I click at each one, the way it's displayed also is backed up by how the content looks. So here you've got the header, who we are, and sure enough, there's who we are. And then you've got the item title, which is this content, data, the data source, title. So this is title, which if you remember back on the little elements, I had the title was each of our names. Then the subtitle was what I do, what my capacity is. And then if you have item content, then you plug that in here. Then you have your data image and so forth. And here you have fewer options. Now, and again, each of these changes. See here, it's just the data image. So we go back to here. All right. So now I'm going to cancel the changes because I didn't want it to change what I did. All right. Now, that's how it displays on the content. Now, what if you click on each of these people? Well, this is the detail. So now you see your templates for your detail. And so you can play around with it, and it shows you a rough cut of what it looked like, and then it displays it over here. So I have my title, which is my name. Then I have the subtitle, which is my capacity. And then my content is the content description. Remember, I had the 4th item there on the data source was description. So here's more detail about me, the dissertation about me. And then you have the image. Okay? And you can change, these icons mean something. You can change the context. So right now it shows the context is subtitle, but I could change it to one of these others, but obviously I don't want to because I want the subtitle there. But you could change it up. And then you have extras. This is cool. Text-to-speech works. So you can actually tell it, all right, when I click on the read, when I bring up the ellipsis and I click on the read, this is what I want it to read. I want it to read this description, which was the context. I can change it if I want to, but I'm not going to. Or I can disable it. I can say I don't want it to be able to read it. And then I can give the option to pin that to start. You see that there. If I disable that, share text and enable pin to start, those will disappear. And they will not be but that is only in this context of the detail. So let me cancel. All right. Let's look at feeds, because I want to share the blog entries that I have. Because Ceti Fox Productions, I upload my blog. I typically upload is a background on a show that we've done and link to the video of the show. So here, my blog, I have my data source is the feeds, and I found this is the URL for SetiFox.net if you want to RSS the feed. And again, that's getting way into the weeds. For people who don't know what RSS is, and it actually will show you when you refresh it, it actually shows you recent blog entries. And here's your elements again: ID, title, author, published date. Okay, so go back. All right, so that's the data source. Now, what did the section page look like? Here's the template I chose. I wanted the kind of the framed look. So it shows a picture. There's an overall title, what we do, and then the content of each of those little frames is going to be the item title. In this case, arranging, netcasting, theater. A subtitle, in this case, musical arranging, live netcast production, performance coaching, and then an image. Those are the three pieces that show up there. Okay. And now let's look at the details. So if I click on any one of those, this brings me to more detail. So I have the title, which is arranging. I have the subtitle, which is the musical arranging. Then I have the content description, which is the more detail. And then the image. So there's 4 pieces to this. 1, 2, 3, and 4. And again, I can go to the extras and I can tell it text to speech. I want it to read the description. And I can demonstrate what that would look like. Let me bring up my Windows phone here. And I'll bring up my app. All right, let me jump back here to go back to there we go. So I've got my app right here, and see I go up, I can go left, right, so forth. So if I want to click on arranging, so it brings it up. Now I can click on the ellipsis, and it pops it up just like you saw on the screen. And I'm going to say read.
Musical arranging, whether for musical theater or personal use, we can usually customize or create something to fit your needs.
See, it's that simple. So it adds that capability. So anyway, let's say that you've worked with all the pieces that you want. You've created all your content. You're happy with the end, all the preview pieces. So you've got up here, you've got app information, configure your app content, configure the app style. So here's where you can change such things as the background, which I'll probably still do that. I'm not happy with that green background. But you can change you can change the foreground colors, the lighting, the letters, etc. Oh, that was interesting. Here we go. So you can choose all of that information, and once you're done with customizing how it appears, then you click on generate. And here you can either look at the summary page, or you can go ahead and generate the app. Now what that does, it takes, depending on the template, may take up to 2 minutes. It's very fast. So it generates it, and then, let's see if I can go back to the dashboard. See if I'll bring it up here. There we go. When it's done, you then can scan it with your phone and install it. Now what it'll do is it'll send you, after it's generated, you'll get an email with a special certificate, because unless you access an app through the store, you technically can't install it unless you what they call sideload it. As a developer, you can get a certificate that lets you sideload an app, which is what you're doing here. So you load the certificate, and then you just scan the QR code here on the screen, and it installs the app. Very simple. But as I said earlier, you could download the source code if you really want to dig into it and expand its capability by using full developer tools. You can download a publish package. If you're so happy with this that you want others to be able to access it, then you can download the publish package and then submit that through the developer website to Microsoft. They'll take some time to evaluate whether it conforms to all the rules, and if it make sure it doesn't violate any laws, etc. And then they'll publish it, and then people can download it. They'll go out to the Windows Phone store and they can install stuff, or you can share it by email, and then they can get a certificate and they can actually install it on their machine. I've actually shared an early version of this with one of my Windows Phone friends because I just wanted to try out how that works, and it's actually pretty cool. So that's what I've been doing with that. That's kind of fun. I've been having a good time with that. Oops, accidentally activated my voice control. Speaking of Windows Phone, the latest update, Lumia Black plus the GDR3 update from Microsoft has been rolling out for a number of phones worldwide. It just started last week rolling out to the Lumia 925 on AT&T. So the early reports are that unlocked 920s are getting the update, and in the next week or two, we should see it rolling out to the 920s on AT&T. So I still have switch cameras here. I still have my 920, and so I keep it up to date with everything. I've actually got the developer preview of GDR3 on it, and it works great. But I'm anxious to get the Lumia Black update, which is the Nokia bits on here, as quickly as possible. So, and a lot of my friends have the 920, so which is a very popular unit. And I think I have a number of friends who have the 520 as well. So, and that should be that'll probably be rolling right after the 920. So be on the lookout for that. Be checking daily or at least every other day to see if it's starting to roll. But of course, as soon as I've always got my finger on the pulse of this. So if it starts to roll, I'll definitely be sharing that with, because I have a group on my phone, and I'll be sharing that with that group as soon as I hear something. Let's see. I think that just about is it. I've been doing this every week, and I want to continue. Tara and I volunteer at a Pet Swish, and it's fun and dirty work, and it's heartbreaking when you see these poor animals, where they're coming from, etc. But it's also exciting when they get a new home, like Vala did. She got a new home, and like Alex did. She got a new home. And they still need help. They need all the help they can get. They were doing a adopt-a-thon this morning at their location. And so hopefully there were a lot of people able to help. I've got so little time, but we have set aside the Monday evenings to help them out. So that's our fixed time that we can dedicate to helping them. And it's better if you can dedicate a specific time every time that you can help. So it's easier for them to plan and program. So and so we've done that. We say we can be there Monday night, which is awesome. But they need more help, especially they need to build a privacy fence, basically, around the back part of their shop, their office, because the city regulations require that. They have to be able to protect so that people can't access the area. Because right now there's cages, but people can just walk up, and that's kind of dangerous. So they need help setting that up. So please contact a Pet Swish in Del Rio, Texas, if you're local and if you're available to help them out, because they could use it. Especially if you can work a hammer and a saw, that would be helpful. So yeah, give them a call. Just go visit their website too. And they're on Facebook. Administrivia before we head out here. Okay, Next Dive Club meeting. We just had the one for January. Next Dive Club meeting, 20 February, 7 p.m. at Rudy's Restaurant. And guess what? Dive classes are now listed for the 2014 season. So let me switch to screen region. So if you go out to our website, delriodiveclub.com, you'll see a number of things here. It's a pretty cool website, if I do say so myself. See a little bit about us. Some neat little pictures, too. And see what's on our calendar. Wake up. Here we go. But if you go to our scuba classes link, sure enough, there they are. Gives you some details. Also, things that you need to know. Things you need to know. Just download this document. There's a link. Just download this document. Read it. Learn it. Know it. Live it. And then also the standard medical statement that you have to fill out. But here's what we got for scuba classes lined up. April 24th through the 27th. And there's the sign up not later than date. May 22nd through the 25th. June 26th through the 29th. July 24th through the 27th. August 28th through the 31st. And September 25th through the 29th. So those are dates. You see some more details. So if you're curious about the classes as I provide them, that should give you the 90% solution there of what's going on, and especially if you read the things to know. And then you can always send me an email if you've got any other questions. We've got our contact information there, etc. Got our blog that we post things on, show videos. That was awesome. That octopus was great. The pervy turtle. So all of our little stories are up there. We even, of course, feature information about the show that you're watching right now, Two Guys Who Dive. A little bit of background there and how to get in touch with us. So that's our website, delriodiveclub.com. I think it's pretty cool. Not too difficult, but it's fun. All right. So, again, as you can see, I can do a lot of things all by myself because there's a party going on in here 24/7, 365. But it's more fun if I have people to interact with. I know a lot of folks are going out doing the movies. There was absolutely nothing on at the movies that I had any interest in seeing this week. A number of people on Facebook gave me some suggestions, but I'm sorry. I had zero interest in seeing any of these movies. So it looks like it'll be February before I get to see anything that was on the 2014 list that we talked about on our first episode of the year. So, again, if you want to contact us, visit our diveclub.com, our website, or check us out on Facebook, Del Rio Dive Club. Or you can send us a message via Skype at TGWD, Two Guys Who Dive. You can send me an email at Robert. Just send it to robert.wade at cetifox.net, CETIFOX.net. Or follow me on Twitter at RobertCFP. That's the CFP stands for Ceti Fox Productions. I'm very prolific on both Facebook and Twitter, as well as LinkedIn. Actually, you can find me on LinkedIn if you really care to follow that stuff too. But I will respond. I will reply. I will entertain your questions, comments, suggestions, ideas. I won't necessarily agree with all of them, but I'll entertain them. So, again, wishing Scuba Bob all the best. Hope everything goes okay with his friend. It's always tough going through a loss like that. And again, if you're in the Del Rio area and like to help out with a Pet's Wish, they really could use your help. As a matter of fact, I was just noticing on Facebook, they were posting. Oh, and it just scrolled by. Let's see if I can bring that up again. Yeah, they wanted to thank everyone very much for their help. I guess they had quite a few that were able to work and give donations, etc. Because it costs a lot to take care of, feed, and otherwise nurture all those animals. They're going to be posting some pictures up there pretty soon, which should be pretty cool. Looking forward to that. It feels really good to help out organizations like that when you see what's being done to these poor animals. So, all right. So hopefully next week, everybody will be back on deck to jump into the show. Real quick, I would like to send a happy birthday to Jennifer McGonigal, who is celebrating her 40th birthday. So that's a big milestone. I remember when I hit my 40th. But so Troy, who has guested on our show a number of times, he is taking his wife out on a big celebratory weekend. So safe travels for them. Hope they have a good time. I already know they are because they keep posting some silly pictures on Facebook, so I know they're having a good time. But it's pretty awesome when you see a couple that really loves each other and has a good godly marriage and everything like that. And it's a great example to see healthy marriages like that, because there seem to be so few of those these days. Crossing 25 years is often seems to be a more difficult thing. But Tara and I are about to do that this year, so we're excited about that. We still have to figure out what exciting thing we're going to do for our 25th. But before you know it, it'll be here. It seems like every year we're always at Balmoral. So we'll see what happens this year. So anyway, that pretty much wraps it up this week. Hope to see you guys in the chat room more often. Check us out on YouTube, because we upload the show right after we complete it. We upload it to YouTube so you guys can check it out, review certain pieces. You're like, oh, I want to see that again. Guess what? You can, because it's on YouTube, and you can check it out, and it's awesome. So we will see you next week on another exciting episode of Two Guys Who Dive. See ya.